I should have known it was over when my wife started saving her ex-boyfriend's number under the name Janine. But I'm Troy Renwick, 37 years old, commercial insurance broker from Chicago's northwest suburbs, and I've spent my entire adult life believing that reasonable people can work through anything. Even when those reasonable people include my wife Liora, who has the emotional depth of a decorative throw pillow and twice the manipulative power. The moment that changed everything happened on a Thursday evening in October, during what Liora's family calls their monthly gathering, but what I've come to think of as voluntary psychological torture with catered appetizers. We were sitting around the mahogany dining table in her mother's Winnetka home, the kind of house that screams, "We have money and want everyone to know it." Mrs. Selrick had outdone herself with the spread, imported cheeses, artisanal crackers, wine that cost more than my monthly car payment. The whole family was there, Leora's parents, her younger sister Kira, and her cousin Brandon, who works in tech, but has never actually explained what that means. Liora was 3 glasses deep into a Bordeaux that probably cost more than most people's rent when she started talking about Joel Bannon. Again. "You know," she said, twirling her wine glass with perfectly manicured fingers, "Joel always said I had the best eye for color coordination he'd ever seen. He used to say I could make a garbage dump look like a magazine spread." I stabbed a piece of brie with more force than necessary. "That's nice, honey." "He's doing so well now," she continued, her voice taking on that dreamy quality that made my stomach clench. "His real estate development company just landed that huge contract downtown, the one for those luxury condos by the lake." Kira shot me a look across the table. Kira Maller, 32, wedding planner, and the only person in Leora's family who seemed to possess actual human emotions. She had always been different from her sister, warmer, more genuine, with laugh lines that suggested she actually experienced joy instead of just performing it. "Liora," Kira said carefully, "maybe we could talk about something else?" But Liora was on a roll. The wine had loosened her tongue, and she was saying things that in a healthy marriage would be discussed privately, if at all. "Joel texted me yesterday," she announced to the table. "He said he missed our conversations. We used to talk for hours about design concepts, about life, about everything, really." Mrs. Selrick nodded approvingly. She had never liked me. I wasn't wealthy enough, connected enough, impressive enough for her precious daughter. Joel, on the other hand, came from old Chicago money and drove a Tesla that cost more than I made in 6 months. "He always was a charming boy," Mrs. Selrick said, refilling Leora's glass. "Such ambition, such vision." I felt like I was watching a tennis match where I was simultaneously the ball and the net. Every comment about Joel was a subtle dig at me. Every compliment about his success an implicit criticism of my own modest achievements. "Remember when Joel took you to that charity gala?" Mrs. Selrick continued. "The photos were beautiful. You two looked so elegant together." "Mother," Kira warned. But Liora was nodding, her eyes bright with wine and memories. "He knew how to make everything feel special. Grand gestures, surprise trips, expensive restaurants. He never worried about budgets or practical concerns." Unlike me, she didn't say, but the implication hung in the air like smoke. I had been married to Liora for 4 years, and I could trace the exact moment when things started to deteriorate. It was when Joel moved back to Chicago after his divorce, when he started showing up in Leora's Instagram stories, when she began working late and taking mysterious phone calls in the other room. "Joel and I understand each other," she continued, seemingly oblivious to the fact that her husband was sitting right there. "We have the same vision for what life should be, the same appreciation for beauty, for quality, for living well." Brandon, who had been scrolling through his phone, looked up. "Didn't you guys date for like 3 years? Before you met Troy?" 3.5, Liora corrected, and there was something in her voice, pride, maybe, or longing. "We were practically engaged. Everyone said we were perfect together." "So why did you break up?" Brandon asked, with the tactless curiosity of someone who has never been in a serious relationship. Liora's expression grew wistful. Timing. He wasn't ready to settle down then, but people change, mature. He's different now, more focused, more committed to what he wants. The conversation continued around me, but I felt like I was underwater, hearing everything through a distorted filter. My wife was sitting at a family dinner talking about another man with the kind of reverence she used to reserve for me, and everyone was just letting it happen. I excused myself to the bathroom and stood in front of the mirror looking at my reflection. Average height, brown hair that was starting to thin at the temples, lines around my eyes that spoke of too many late nights reviewing insurance claims. I wasn't ugly, but I wasn't Joel Bannon either. I was just ordinary. When I returned to the table, the conversation had shifted to Liora's interior design business. She had been building her client base steadily over the past 2 years, largely through referrals from my professional network. Insurance brokers deal with a lot of wealthy people, and I had been happy to connect her with clients who needed design work. Business is really picking up, she was saying. I might need to hire an assistant soon. Joel offered to help me find office space. He knows all the best commercial properties. Of course he did. That's wonderful, dear, Mrs. Selrick said. Joel always was so supportive of your career ambitions. Unlike me, again left unsaid, but clearly implied. The evening dragged on. More wine, more stories about Joel's successes, more pointed comments about ambition and vision and living life to the fullest. I contributed when spoken to directly, but mostly I observed. I watched my wife's face light up when she talked about her ex-boyfriend. I watched her mother nod approvingly at every mention of his name. I watched Kira grow increasingly uncomfortable, shooting me apologetic looks that somehow made everything worse. It was nearly 10 o'clock when the conversation took its final devastating turn. We were having coffee and dessert when Liora's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled, the kind of smile I used to think was reserved for me. Speak of the devil, she said, typing a quick response. Joel's asking if I want to grab coffee tomorrow to discuss some business opportunities. How exciting, Mrs. Selrick said. Liora set her phone down and looked around the table, her expression serene and confident. The wine had given her a flush that made her look younger, more vibrant. She was beautiful. I had never denied that. Tall, blonde, with the kind of effortless elegance that made other women jealous and men stupid. You know what? She said, her voice calm and matter-of-fact. I've been thinking a lot lately about life choices, about paths not taken, about what makes people truly happy. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. If my ex calls, she continued, looking directly at me for the first time all evening, I'm going back. The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. Mrs. Selrick's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. Brandon looked up from his phone. Kira's face went pale, but Liora just sat there, smiling serenely, as if she had just commented on the weather. I stared at my wife, this woman I had loved, supported, built a life with, and realized that she had just publicly humiliated me in front of her entire family. Not in anger, not in the heat of an argument, but calmly, deliberately, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I could have made a scene. I could have shouted, demanded explanations, turned the evening into the kind of dramatic confrontation that people talk about for years. Instead, I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. I stood up. I folded my napkin, placed it beside my plate, and pushed my chair back under the table. Thank you for dinner, Mrs. Selrick, I said politely. It was lovely as always. And then I walked out. I heard chairs scraping behind me, voices calling my name, but I didn't stop. I grabbed my coat from the front closet, walked out the front door, and headed toward my car. The October air was crisp and clear, carrying the scent of burning leaves and the promise of winter. I was halfway to my Honda Civic when I heard footsteps running behind me. Troy, Troy, wait! I turned to see Kira hurrying down the driveway, her heels clicking against the pavement. She had grabbed a shawl but was still shivering in her dress. "I'm sorry," she said breathlessly when she reached me. "I'm so sorry about what happened in there. Liora was drunk. She didn't mean—" "She meant every word," I said quietly. Kira's face crumpled. "She's been different lately, ever since Joel came back to town. I've tried talking to her, but she won't listen. She's obsessed with this idea that she made a mistake, that she chose the wrong life." I looked back at the house, where warm light spilled from the windows and I could see silhouettes moving around the dining room. My wife was probably explaining to her family why what she had said wasn't really that bad, why I was overreacting, why she deserved to explore her options. "She doesn't deserve you," Kira said suddenly. "She never has. You're kind and loyal and decent, and she treats you like you're invisible." I turned back to look at her. Kira had always been beautiful in a different way than her sister, less polished, more natural. Where Liora was all sharp angles and calculated perfection, Kira had curves and warmth and eyes that actually seemed to see you when she looked at you. "Forget her," she said, stepping closer. "Pick me." The words hit me like a physical blow. Here was Liora's sister, standing in the driveway of their mother's house, offering herself as an alternative to a marriage that was clearly over. I looked at Kira, really looked at her, the way she was watching me with hope and desperation and something that might have been love. The way she had been defending me all evening, trying to redirect conversations away from Joel, shooting me sympathetic glances when she thought no one was looking. I smiled, and for the first time in months, it felt genuine. "Already did," I said. Kira's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I glanced back at the house one more time, then opened my car door. "Get in. We need to talk." She hesitated for just a moment, then hurried around to the passenger side. As we pulled away from the Selrick family mansion, I could see Liora framed in the front window, watching us leave. "Troy," Kira said as we drove through the quiet suburban streets, "what did you mean when you said already did?" I kept my eyes on the road. "How long have you known about Joel?" "What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb, Kira. You're the only one in your family with functioning emotional intelligence. You've been watching this train wreck for months. How long have you known?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Since July," she finally admitted. "I saw them having lunch together at that place on Oak Street. They were close. Too close for people who were just friends. July. 3 months of watching my marriage disintegrate while pretending everything was fine. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to. God, Troy, I wanted to tell you so badly. But she's my sister, and I kept hoping she would come to her senses. I kept thinking it was just a phase, that she would remember what she had with you." I pulled into the parking lot of an all-night diner near the highway. The neon sign flickered, Mel's Diner in pink and blue, and through the windows I could see a handful of late-night customers nursing coffee and regrets. "Come on," I said. "I need coffee for this conversation." We found a booth in the back corner, away from the other customers. Kira ordered chamomile tea. I got black coffee strong enough to strip paint. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and comfortable shoes, left us alone with our drinks and a slice of apple pie we hadn't asked for. "So," Kira said, wrapping her hands around her mug, "what's the plan?" "You assume I have a plan." "Troy, you're an insurance broker. You assess risk for a living. You don't make impulsive decisions. You've been thinking about this for weeks, haven't you?" She was right, of course. The truth was, I had been planning for this moment since the first time I caught Liora texting someone late at night and saw her quickly close her phone when I entered the room. Since the first time she came home from drinks with the girls, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. Since the first time she mentioned Joel's name with that particular tone in her voice. 3 weeks ago, I said, I opened a separate bank account. Last week I changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance policies. Yesterday I signed a lease on a one-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park. Kira stared at me. You're leaving her. I left her the moment she said those words tonight. Everything else is just paperwork. But what about the house? Your business? All the connections you've made through her family? I took a sip of coffee and smiled grimly. That's where it gets interesting. See, Liora's design business depends almost entirely on referrals from my client network. Rich people who need insurance also tend to need interior designers. Over the past 2 years, I've sent her probably 60% of her business. Understanding dawned in Kira's eyes. And you can just stop. I can do more than stop. I can actively redirect those referrals to other designers, people who might be more grateful for the business, more professional in their approach. That's brilliant and completely legal. I'm not interested in revenge, Kira. I'm interested in consequences. Liora wants to go back to Joel? Fine, but she's going to do it without the safety net I've been providing. Kira was quiet for a moment, stirring her tea thoughtfully. What about tonight, when you said you'd already chosen me? I looked at her across the table. In the harsh fluorescent light of the diner, she looked younger, more vulnerable, but there was something in her eyes that I had been missing for months in my own home, genuine concern for my well-being. I meant that I've been noticing you, I said carefully. The way you've been trying to protect me from your family's comments, the way you actually listen when I talk, the way you look at me like I'm worth something. You are worth something. You're worth everything. The intensity in her voice caught me off guard. This wasn't just sympathy or family loyalty. This was something deeper, something that had probably been building for longer than either of us wanted to admit. Kira, I said gently, your sister just publicly announced that she's leaving me for another man. This probably isn't the best time for us to be having this conversation. When would be a better time? After the divorce? After she's moved in with Joel and you're living alone in that apartment you rented? After we've all pretended that tonight didn't happen? She had a point. And sitting there in that diner, looking at this woman who had been part of my life for 4 years, but who I was really seeing for the first time, I realized that my marriage had been over long before tonight. Tonight was just the official announcement. If we do this, I said, it gets complicated, messy. Your family will choose sides, and they probably won't choose ours. Let them, she said fiercely. I'm tired of watching Liora treat people like they're disposable. I'm tired of my mother acting like money and status are more important than basic human decency. I'm tired of pretending that the way they treated you tonight was acceptable. My phone buzzed, a text from Liora. Where are you? We need to talk. I showed Kira the message. She rolled her eyes. Now she wants to talk. After humiliating you in front of everyone. What should I tell her? Tell her you're busy. Tell her you're making new plans. Tell her that actions have consequences. I typed back, I'm exactly where I need to be. Almost immediately, my phone rang. Liora's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, Kira said. Put it on speaker. I hesitated, then accepted the call. Troy, where are you? I've been worried sick. Her voice was different now, softer, more vulnerable. The confident woman who had announced her intentions to leave me had been replaced by someone who sounded almost scared. I'm having coffee, I said calmly. Coffee? It's almost midnight. Troy, we need to talk about what happened tonight. I was drinking, I said things I didn't mean. You meant every word. Silence on the other end of the line. That's not... I was upset about work, about money, about a lot of things. Joel represents a different time in my life, when things felt easier. But that doesn't mean... Liora, I interrupted. Do you love me? Another pause. Too long of a pause. Of course I love you. You're my husband. That's not what I asked. Do you love me? Not the security I provide, not the business connections, not the stable life. Me. The silence stretched on. Across from me, Kira watched with sad but unsurprised eyes. Troy, love is complicated. Marriage is about more than just feelings. No, I said quietly. It's really not. I hung up. Kira reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. I'm sorry. Don't be. I needed to hear it. Or rather, I needed to hear what she didn't say. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking our coffee and tea, watching the occasional car pass by on the highway. The waitress refilled my cup without being asked and left us alone with our thoughts. So, what happens now? Kira asked eventually. Now I go home, pack some things, and move into my new apartment. Tomorrow I call my lawyer and start divorce proceedings. Monday I start making some phone calls to redirect my client referrals. And us? I looked at her, really looked at her. Kira Maller, wedding planner, who understood better than anyone how relationships were supposed to work, who had spent years watching her sister take me for granted, who was offering me something I hadn't even realized I was missing. Us, I said, is something we figure out one day at a time, after I'm officially separated, after the dust settles, after we know this isn't just rebound emotion. She nodded, disappointed but understanding. Can I help? With the moving, I mean. With the practical stuff. That would be nice. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Mike Patterson, my best friend and the only person who had ever been brave enough to tell me that my marriage looked exhausting from the outside. Heard about tonight. You okay? I showed the message to Kira. Mike's a good friend, she said. He never liked Liora much. How do you know that? Because he's smart enough to recognize that she never made you happy. You've been going through the motions for months, Troy. Everyone could see it except you. I texted Mike back. Better than okay, finally awake. His response was immediate. About damn time. Need help with anything? Moving day tomorrow. You free? Absolutely. This is going to be fun. Kira smiled. I like Mike. He'll like you too. We finished our drinks and walked back to my car. The night air was getting colder, and Kira pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders. Troy, she said as I started the engine. Yeah? Thank you for walking away tonight. For not making a scene, for not giving them the satisfaction of seeing you lose control. That took real strength. It didn't feel strong. It felt like giving up. Sometimes giving up on the wrong thing is the strongest thing you can do. I dropped her off at her apartment in Evanston, a cozy 2-bedroom place above a bookstore that was so perfectly Kira it made me smile. She had always been the artistic one in her family, the one who chose charm over status, warmth over wealth. I'll call you tomorrow, I said as she got out of the car. I'll be waiting. I drove home to the house I had shared with Liora for 3 years, the house we had bought together when we still believed in forever. The lights were on in the living room, and I could see her silhouette pacing back and forth, probably rehearsing the conversation she wanted to have when I got home. But I wasn't ready for that conversation. Instead, I parked down the street and called Mike. Troy, it's midnight, man. Everything okay? Remember how you always said I should have a backup plan? Yeah? I'm implementing it. Can you meet me at my house in 20 minutes? I need help loading some boxes. Hell yes. I'll be right there. Mike Patterson arrived in his pickup truck with coffee, donuts, and the kind of grim satisfaction that comes from watching a friend finally stand up for himself. He was a contractor, built like a linebacker, with the kind of straightforward personality that cut through bullshit like a hot knife through butter. So, he said, as we loaded boxes of my clothes and books into his truck, she really said that? In front of her whole family? Word for word. Jesus, Troy, I mean, I knew she was cold, but that's next-level cruel. We worked in relative silence, moving my essential belongings out of the house while Liora slept upstairs. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to think. We'll talk when I'm ready. By 3 in the morning, I was moved into my new apartment. It was small but clean, with hardwood floors and big windows that looked out over Lincoln Park. Mike helped me set up the bed and the coffee maker, then cracked open 2 beers. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his bottle. "To consequences," I replied. We drank to that. I woke up Saturday morning to 17 missed calls from Liora and 43 text messages ranging from apologetic to angry to desperate. I deleted them all without reading most of them and made coffee in my new kitchen. The apartment felt strange, but good. Quiet in a way my house never was, peaceful in a way I had forgotten was possible. I stood at the window, looking out at the park where early morning joggers were starting their weekend routines, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: relief. My phone rang. Kira. "Good morning," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "How was your first night of freedom?" "Quiet, peaceful, strange." "Good strange or bad strange?" "Definitely good. What are you doing today?" "Well, I was supposed to have brunch with Liora and my mother to discuss wedding plans for the Henderson event next month. But given the circumstances, I'm thinking of canceling." I could picture that conversation. Mrs. Selrick demanding to know where I was, Liora alternating between self-pity and righteous indignation, both of them expecting Kira to choose sides. "Don't cancel on my account," I said. "But maybe don't mention that you've been talking to me. Actually, I have a better idea. Why don't you come with me to look at some furniture for your apartment? I know all the best places, and you're going to need more than a bed and a coffee maker." "Kira, I appreciate the offer, but people might see us together. It could cause problems for you with your family." "Let them see. I'm not ashamed of being friends with you, Troy. And honestly, after last night, I'm not too concerned about what my family thinks." We met at a furniture store in Lincoln Park, one of those places that specialized in modern, functional pieces for urban living. Kira had an eye for design that rivaled her sister's, but where Liora always chose pieces that looked expensive, Kira selected things that felt comfortable. "This," she said, running her hand over a charcoal gray sectional sofa. "It's stylish but not pretentious. Comfortable enough for watching movies, nice enough for when you have guests." "I don't really have guests." "You will. Trust me. Once word gets out that you're single and living in Lincoln Park, you're going to be very popular." The thought hadn't occurred to me. For 4 years, my social life had revolved entirely around Liora's friends and family. I had lost touch with most of my college buddies, had never developed friendships with my colleagues beyond professional courtesy. My entire world had shrunk to accommodate her preferences, her schedule, her needs. "What about dining room furniture?" Kira asked, leading me toward a display of sleek wooden tables. "I don't really need a dining room. I usually eat at the kitchen counter." She stopped and looked at me with something that might have been pity. "Troy, when was the last time you had people over for dinner? When was the last time you cooked a meal just because you wanted to, not because Liora expected it?" I thought about it. The answer was depressing. "We're getting you a dining table," she said firmly, "and some decent cookware, and maybe some art for the walls that isn't beige." We spent the morning selecting furniture, and I found myself enjoying the process more than I had expected. Kira had strong opinions, but listened to mine, creating a space that felt like it could actually belong to me, rather than looking like a magazine spread. "What about this?" she asked, pointing to a leather armchair in rich brown. "Every man needs a chair that's just his. Somewhere to read, to think, to drink whiskey and contemplate the mysteries of the universe." "I don't drink whiskey." "You will. It comes with the divorced guy territory." We were loading my purchases into the delivery truck when my phone rang. Liora again. "Answer it," Kira said. "You can't avoid her forever." I accepted the call. "Troy, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Where are you?" "I'm buying furniture for my apartment." Silence. Then, "Your apartment? Troy, what are you talking about? You live here with me? We just had a fight. That doesn't mean you move out? It wasn't a fight, Liora. A fight implies that both people are engaged in the conflict. What happened last night was you announcing your intentions and me responding appropriately. I was drunk. I said things I didn't mean. Can't we just talk about this like adults? I looked at Kira, who was pretending not to listen while signing paperwork for the delivery. Okay, I said. Let's talk. Do you want to be married to me? Of course I do. We have a life together, a house, a business relationship. That's not what I asked. Do you want to be married to me? Not to the idea of me, not to the security I provide, not to the business connections. To me, specifically. Another long pause. Marriage is about more than just wanting, Troy. It's about compatibility, about building something together. Do you love Joel? It's complicated. It's not complicated. It's the simplest question in the world. Do you love him? I have feelings for Joel, yes. But that doesn't mean... Thank you for your honesty, I said, and hung up. Kira was watching me with sad but proud eyes. How do you feel? Like I should have asked those questions months ago. We had lunch at a little cafe near the furniture store, sitting outside despite the October chill because Kira said she needed fresh air to think clearly. So what's your timeline? She asked over salads and coffee. Timeline for what? For the divorce. For moving on. For figuring out what comes next. I'm meeting with my lawyer Monday morning. Based on what he told me when I consulted with him 3 weeks ago, it should be relatively straightforward. No kids, minimal shared assets, clear evidence of infidelity. Evidence? I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a folder I had labeled Documentation. Screenshots of text messages, photos of credit card statements showing charges at restaurants I had never been to, a private investigator's report that I had commissioned 2 weeks ago. Kira's eyes widened as she scrolled through the evidence. Troy, this is thorough. I'm an insurance broker, remember? I investigate fraud for a living. This wasn't that different. When did you hire a private investigator? The day after I found Joel's number in her phone under a fake name. I needed to know what I was dealing with. The PI's report was comprehensive and damning. Photos of Liora and Joel having intimate lunches, entering and leaving his apartment building, shopping together for what appeared to be household items. The timeline showed that their relationship had been ongoing for at least 4 months, possibly longer. This is going to make the divorce very simple, Kira said, handing my phone back. That's the idea. My phone buzzed with a text from Mike. Liora just showed up at my house looking for you. Told her I didn't know where you were. She's not taking this well. I showed the message to Kira. She's panicking, she said. She thought she could have her cake and eat it too. Keep you as the stable backup plan while exploring things with Joel. Well, the backup plan just expired. We finished lunch and walked through Lincoln Park, past the zoo and the conservatory, along the paths where couples walked hand in hand and families played with their children. It was the kind of perfect autumn day that made you believe in new beginnings. Can I ask you something? Kira said as we sat on a bench overlooking the lake. Sure. How long have you been unhappy? I thought about it. Honestly, probably since the wedding, maybe before. But I kept thinking it would get better, that we just needed to find our rhythm as a married couple. And when did you realize it wasn't going to get better? The first time she criticized me in front of her friends. We were at some gallery opening, and I made a comment about one of the paintings. Nothing insulting, just that it wasn't really my style. She laughed and said, Troy has very pedestrian taste in art. It's charming, really. Kira winced. That's not charming. That's cruel. It was the way she said it. Like I was a pet who had done something amusing but embarrassing. Like my opinions were cute but irrelevant. She's always done that. Even when we were kids. She has this way of making people feel small while pretending to be affectionate. Why didn't you ever say anything? I tried a few times, but she's very good at turning it around, making it seem like you're being oversensitive or jealous. And honestly, I didn't think you'd listen. You seemed so committed to making the marriage work. I was, right up until last night. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the lake and the joggers and the couples walking by. It occurred to me that this was the most relaxed I had felt in months, maybe years. Kira, I said eventually, what you said last night about choosing you, did you mean it? She turned to look at me, and there was something in her eyes that made my chest tight. I've been in love with you since your wedding day, she said quietly. I stood there watching you marry my sister, and all I could think was that she didn't deserve you, that she was going to break your heart, and I hated myself for thinking it, but I couldn't stop. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because you were married to my sister. Because I'm not the kind of person who interferes in other people's relationships. Because I kept hoping I was wrong about her, that she would realize what she had and treat you better. And now? Now I'm done watching her treat you like you're disposable. Now I'm done pretending that what she did last night was acceptable. Now I'm ready to fight for what I want. I reached over and took her hand. It was smaller than Liora's, softer, warmer. I want to do this right, I said. I want to be completely free of her before we start anything real. You deserve better than being a rebound. I know, and I'm willing to wait. But Troy? Yeah? Don't make me wait too long. That evening I returned to my apartment to find Liora sitting in the hallway outside my door. She looked terrible, makeup smeared, hair disheveled, wearing the same clothes from the night before. How did you find me? I asked. I followed Kira. I saw you two together today, buying furniture, having lunch, holding hands in the park. Kira and I are friends. Friends don't look at each other the way you two were looking at each other. I unlocked my apartment door and stepped inside. Liora followed without being invited. This is nice, she said, looking around at my sparse but clean living space. Very bachelor pad. What do you want, Liora? I want my husband back. I want to go home and pretend last night never happened. I want things to go back to the way they were. The way they were was you texting another man while lying next to me in bed. The way they were was you talking about him constantly, comparing me to him, making it clear that I was second choice. That's not true. Which part? The texting? The comparing? Or the part where you told your entire family that you'd leave me for him if he asked? She sat down on my new sofa and started crying. Real tears, not the calculated ones she used when she wanted something. I'm scared, she said. I'm scared of being alone, of starting over, of admitting that I made a mistake. Which mistake? Marrying me or falling for Joel? I don't know. Both. Neither. Troy, I'm confused and I've been drinking and I just want to come home. I sat down across from her, maintaining distance. Liora, do you love me? I love our life together. I love the security, the stability, the future we planned. That's not what I asked. She was quiet for a long time, tears streaming down her face. I love the idea of you, she said finally. I love being married to someone good and decent and reliable. But I'm not in love with you. I don't think I ever was. Thank you for being honest. But that doesn't mean we can't make this work. Love isn't everything, Troy. Compatibility matters. Shared goals matter. We're good together on paper. I don't want to be good on paper. I want to be good in real life. With Kira. Maybe, eventually, after I'm divorced and she's had time to think about whether she really wants to deal with the fallout from dating her sister's ex-husband. Liora's expression hardened. You can't have her. I won't let you destroy my family. Your family destroyed itself when they decided I wasn't good enough for their princess. When they spent 4 years making it clear that they tolerated me but didn't respect me. When they sat there last night and watched you humiliate me without saying a word. My mother likes you. Your mother likes my client list. She likes the business I send your way. She likes the stability I represent. She doesn't like me. Liora stood up, pacing around my small living room like a caged animal. Fine. You want a divorce? I'll give you a divorce. But don't expect it to be easy. Don't expect me to just roll over and let you take everything. I don't want everything. I want my freedom and my dignity. You can have the house, most of the furniture, whatever makes you feel like you won. What's the catch? No catch. But my business relationships are mine. My client referrals are mine. The network I built over 10 years in this industry is mine. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You're going to destroy my business. I'm going to stop supporting it. There's a difference. That's the same thing, and you know it. Then you'd better hope Joel's connections are as good as you think they are. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to figure out if there was an angle she hadn't considered. This isn't over, she said finally. Yes, it is. You just don't realize it yet. After she left, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood at my window, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed with a text from Kira. How are you doing? Better than expected, I typed back. Free. Good. That's how you should feel. What about you? How's your family handling the news? About as well as you'd expect. But I don't care. I'm done letting them dictate my life. Any regrets? Only that it took this long. I smiled and set my phone aside. Tomorrow I would call my lawyer and officially start the divorce proceedings. Monday I would begin the process of redirecting my business relationships. Next week I would start building a new life. But tonight, for the first time in years, I was exactly where I wanted to be.